The Film Verdict gives you Noir 360, hosted by Rashid Bahati, a global podcast that explores the impact and influence of Black cinema around the world.
Welcome, everyone, to Noir 360, and today we have a very special guest that I'm, again, very excited to talk to because we go back a ways, and we go back to the Cannes Film Festival, actually, is where I first met Yolonda Brinkley. And Yolanda, the self-proclaimed global disruptor, is a full-service marketing and communications practitioner specializing in diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy, global event production, and entertainment publicity. And I think what's really interesting about this sister is that she started this initiative, and she's the creator of the Diversity in Cannes initiative, independent global movement promoting inclusion at the Cannes Film Festival. Welcome, Yolanda. How are you?
I am doing great, Rashid. Thanks for having me.
This is really, really cool for me because, as you said, when we talked off camera, off audio there, we go back a little bit.
We absolutely do. To 2009, my first trip to the Cannes Film Festival.
Wow, that was your first trip to the Cannes Film Festival. That is really interesting. I started going myself personally probably the late 90s.
Wow.
Was my first trip. But you know what's interesting? I didn't go for film.
Okay.
I started going to Cannes, the city itself, for a multimedia festival because that's my background, technology, and I was teaching at the time and got an opportunity to go to one of the technology conferences and festivals they have in the south of France. You know, they have everything in Cannes, all kind of festivals.
Yeah, they do.
So,
location.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, you know, this was exciting for me because your initiative, I'm calling it an initiative, but you call it a movement, which I agree with totally, has really grown, and I see you all over the place. I see you really have a lot of supporters, and you're doing really great work. So let's just hop in for a minute. Just give people a little background about who Yolonda Brinkley. Who are you? Where did you originate, and how did you get into this stuff?
Okay, so Yolonda Brinkley is originally from Philadelphia. Studied undergraduate at Clark Atlanta University, studied French and international business. During my matriculation through Clark Atlanta, I studied abroad. I was the recipient of the first American Institute for Foreign Study Minority Scholarship to study abroad in Cannes. So
awesome.
that was in the 90s. So that was my first experience in Cannes. In France, really, and that was I won't tell the number because then I'm dating myself. But it was in the 90s, and I went twice. So I went in 1 year from August to September. I went the second year, August to September. August through December. So 4 months each. That's when the second year is when I learned about the Cannes Film Festival because a friend's mother, they were staying there, and some kind of way, that's when I learned about the Cannes Film Festival. I was studying French and international business, so I wasn't in film, but I have a performing arts background. I grew up performing in the theater and dancing and all those.
Okay.
Just for fun, but
didn't know that.
I love performing arts and all that stuff. So that's when I learned about the Cannes Film Festival. I was like, I knew it was 2 weeks, and I just knew it existed.
Right.
Fast forward to graduate school, I went to the University of Illinois, where I got an MBA in marketing, again, in international business, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Graduated, worked at Ford Motor Company for 10 years. Oh, wait, I skipped the whole... I worked at Ford Motor Company for 10 years.
Well, when I met you, I remember you talking about an automobile company. I thought it was Range Rover, but something like that.
Yeah. So I Ford Motor Company, and I worked in various capacities.
Right.
And I was on PR for Jaguar Land Rover North America when I left.
There you go.
Because they were a part of the Ford family. And then Well, I'm going to go back because I forgot.
Oh, take your time. Take your
I
time.
forgot a whole section.
Let's talk about
Whole
that.
section. I was an 8th grade French teacher in Baltimore City
Ah,
with Teach for America.
really?
When
Interesting.
I finished graduate school. When I finished undergraduate school.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I taught 8th grade at a school called Green Spring Middle School in Baltimore for 4 years. Then I went to graduate school.
Oh,
Then I worked at Ford.
okay.
And then in 2008, I severed with the company. They were purchased by an Indian company. And so I left the company in December 2008. And I literally was going to take 6 months off of work and just kind of figure out what I wanted to be. Because by that time, I lived in LA. By that time, I had gone from
What brought you to LA?
the transfer from Lincoln Mercury to, was it Lincoln? The transfer to Ford to Jaguar Land Rover.
Oh, okay.
Brought me to LA. I got
Okay.
a corporate relocation
Oh, okay.
in October of 2007. And then in 2008, if we wanted our jobs, we had to be back in New Jersey by January of 2009. I was like, well, I just moved cross country. I just had 4 going away parties. Like, I'm not coming back right now. Plus, I always wanted to live in LA and California because of my performing arts background. I had an interest in it. So that's how I got to LA. And when I severed, I eventually moved. I was in Orange County. I eventually moved to LA proper. And I was literally sitting in my spare bedroom, chilling, like relaxing in a papasan chair, like really laid back. And I sat up and I was like, oh, I can go to Cannes. Like, that's literally how it happened. I got on the website, started doing research, like trying to figure out how to get there. That's when I learned it was an industry-only festival,
Right.
and that you had to have certain criteria. So I created a whole company that I didn't have.
I love it.
National exposure. I added international because I was going to France.
I love
right?
it.
And I said I was a PR company. Luckily, I had done some work for a woman named Doreen Spicer. She is
I know Doreen.
Yes. So prior to coming to LA, I had met her at a 9/11 event. My friend's mom was lost in 9/11. I went to an event. Doreen was there. We connected. I ended up doing some work for Spice Rack Productions, some event stuff, some PR stuff for Doreen. And I was able to add that to, my kind of dossier for them to consider.
Well, what's so profound is that there are no mistakes in the universe, I believe. And what's interesting is that I didn't remember that Doreen part of your story. I do remember a lot of things that you're saying now, which is amazing. But Doreen was actually part of a company that I was part of called Streamcasters. And I don't know if you know anything about that, ever heard about it, but we were like cutting edge before streaming and all this stuff became popular, based in Carson. Some brothers had cashed out at Microsoft and became self-made millionaires. And we formed a company together, and I was one of the partners of the company. And that's how I know Doreen is from that.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And we were doing stuff, pretty much domestically, but that led me to going to Cannes as well. Through that particular company, because of the multimedia stuff we were doing. I went to Cannes, as I told you, for multimedia. And cutting edge stuff that was happening then, content on cell phones that wasn't a popular thing in the mid and late 90s.
Exactly.
So all of that was coming about. And so that's what led me to Cannes. Yeah, so
well, that's awesome because you're definitely ahead of your time.
Well,
always, as is Doreen, because when she did Savvy, when she had the group Savvy and she produced that television show,
right.
She did it outside of the confines of Hollywood. She went to the TV shows, the TV conferences, and she was able to get distribution for her show. I don't,
Right.
it's not called Savvy, but the group was Savvy because I was involved when she first got started in that. So, but yeah, so Doreen Spicer, that's how I was able to like create some
See,
stuff
I didn't
like,
know we had that level of connectivity there. So
yes,
that's why I
yes,
say it's no
small
accidents in the
world.
universe. We had a certain level of connectivity that we both didn't know about. But
Yeah.
anyway, go
What's
ahead.
the name connected us? Lisa Humphrey connected us because Tangi was going.
Miller.
Um, yeah, Tangi Miller
Oh,
was
yo,
going,
that's my girl.
and Lisa Humphrey, I think, was doing some publicity for her, and
Yes, that's
so
so
then,
true.
so
That's
then
so
that's
true.
how on the ground, that's how we connected.
That is so true. Well, I just find it so fascinating. I want to hop back into that story that you were telling about yourself because from you wanting to go to Cannes, what was the motivation to go back? You just wanted to go back because you had been there studying, or you just wanted to go back? Had you been there and
Well,
studied at that time?
no, so the study from the study to the actual attendance, that was 17, 18 years later.
Oh,
So
okay.
it wasn't even, it
Okay.
hadn't even been, Can had not even been, that's why I'm so surprised that I'm here because Can had not even been on my radar consistently. It was, oh, I studied there when I was an undergraduate. And then now I'm kind of in LA pursuing, pursuing the film industry since I just severed from my company. And oh, you can go to Cannes. Like it literally was like that. Cannes wasn't on my radar. But then as I began to think about it, and I thought about entering into an industry where I'm a novice, though I'm a fully grown woman, I'm a novice in the entertainment business. And I'm like, and I was leading with publicity, though I have an MBA and it's marketing and international business. Because of my location and my surroundings, I was leading with publicity. Then I thought about, okay, emerging talent. I thought about, A-list celebrities, A-list, B-list celebrities. And I'm like, well, they're not going to want to network down to me. And, like I'm not going to jump in and be their though anything is possible.
Right.
It's not likely that they're going to be like, oh, Yolanda Brinkley that came from automotive, come be my publicist, right? So I was like, you speak French, you have a global mindset, you studied abroad. Like I studied abroad in Paris when I was in graduate school, spent 4 months there, spent, 2 tours in Cannes. I'm like, you have an international mindset, you are global, then you need to have a global mindset, like expand. And it wasn't like expand your business per se, but it was like be a global professional.
Wow. That
So
that that is that's profound as well because sometimes people lock themselves in a box and don't realize that you can just kind of think out of that box and expand the horizon as opposed to just being in the box. And that's what you did. You jumped out of the box and said, okay, this is who I am. Let me do that.
yeah, and that's kind of how it started. Because initially the name was Beyond Borders Diversity in
I
Can.
think I remember. Yeah.
I dropped the Beyond Borders to just have diversity in Can.
Right.
And maybe I should have kept Beyond Borders because I also did diversity in Olympics at the 2012 Olympics.
Ah,
I did.
interesting.
I did. I had a whole afternoon with actual athletes from the, gold medal winning athletes, Dee Dee Trotter and a fencing champion. Oh gosh. And he's Tim Whiteman. He's from Teach for America. That was that connection.
Okay.
So I should have put, but I dropped Beyond Borders and now it's just diversity in Can because that was my focus. And so yeah, the idea is for people to think outside their boundaries, whether they are geographic, whether they are self-imposed limitations, go beyond that to finance, produce, and distribute your project. And that's really kind of what diversity in Can is about.
Now,
And doing it on an international level.
right. Okay. Well, let's get into that for a second,
Yes.
and really break it down, unpack it.
Yes.
Diversity in Can, and from my perspective, I think I even indicated to you a few weeks ago. I was the moderator of a panel actually on diversity and inclusion, and it was from the International Locations Conference perspective of these film commissioners from around the world, right?
Yeah,
And
yep.
it was so interesting to have that dialogue with a woman from Catalonia in Spain, and two gentlemen that were here in the States. One is downtown LA, and they have a festival that they do, and of course Outfest,
Yes.
which has grown, tremendously over the years.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to hear their perspectives on diversity and what they're doing to address it, because it becomes a very touchy subject, as you know, here in Hollywood, when you bring up diversity, inclusion, and what's really taking place. So what have you, when you thought about, say, well, this is what I want to do, what made you come to a conclusion that I think somebody needs to be addressing this here in Cannes? What made you come to that conclusion?
It was really the
And
first
why
year.
Cannes?
It was really the first year. I'll start with the why Cannes because it's beautiful.
No doubt about that.
The backdrop is beautiful. You can't get no more beautiful than Cannes.
No
right?
doubt. No doubt.
So that's the why Cannes. I speak French. I'm familiar with the city. I know, I'm familiar with the country and some of their cultural norms, not all, but some. So I'm comfortable there. So that's why I can. And I think that anyone that's interested should be able to go without fear of isolation, being unwelcome. So my goal was to just provide a platform for diverse filmmakers. So not just race or gender, but we're talking sexual orientation, physical ability or disability, however you like to say, religion, age, anybody that is underrepresented or marginalized.
Right.
They have a place at Diversity in Cannes. So that was really the catalyst for it. The catalyst for the movement, though, was the fact that I was there in 2009, and I rolled, with the exception of you, who was doing something, but we moved around quite a bit. I can't remember exactly what was going on, but we moved from one place to the next place on the Quaset, and Danny Glover was there, and there was a lot of movement, a lot going on. But when we finally got situated in one place, you kind of presented an award, and Danny Glover presented the award to the
Suleiman
cultural...
Saisi. Yeah, one of the prominent African directors. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so, that was the only thing that I saw that was
right.
that was diverse of any kind.
Yeah.
And so this was before I was familiar with women in film or anybody. But what I did know and what I did see was that when I walked up, I had a video camera. And when I walked up on the people who looked like me, just because that's a natural instinct, a natural inclination, nobody knew anything, right? We didn't know shit, seriously. I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? And I'm videoing them, and they're like, oh, some of them were in programs, where they were working, but lower level, and not bashing the programs, but they were working in lower level capacities. Oh, well, how do you get to the parties? I don't know. I just picked up an invitation. You got to be in the right place at the right time. How do you get to the premieres? Same thing.
Right.
So nobody knew anything.
How to navigate.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I come from PR at a Fortune 100 company with 5-star things. So I'm not accustomed to being excluded or not having access to things. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. And I was like, oh,
Right.
I was like, well, maybe I won't ever come back here. Maybe this is not the place for me.
Right.
But then I was like, they don't decide what's the place for me. I decide where I go and what I do. And if I'm going to come back, then I will be here again. And so in 2009, the idea was impregnated in me. And in 2010, it was birthed.
That is so cool. Yes, we're talking to Yolonda Brinkley, who is the founder of this movement that's called Diversity in Can. And I met her some years ago, and we've been connected ever since. But her initiative is very, very important to rising filmmakers and people in the industry around diversity in Can. And Can is a very important catalyst for the industry, because it's a market and it's a launching pad for the world, really, as it relates to cinema and television and the whole thing, even though they have their own components for TV festivals and stuff like that. But Cannes is a very important environment. And for you to take it as say, hey, I'm going to figure out a way, I'm going to assist and help and bring to the table more diversity within the confounds of this huge global festival is amazing to me, because that is how I embraced it initially. I was just fortunate to with not only Danny Glover, but Usman Sabin, who's the godfather of African cinema. We presented him an award. In fact, the year that you saw Danny Glover there, that was the first time he had ever been to Cannes. It blew me away. That's a dude.
Oh, wow.
All these years I've seen you in these top movies, and he said nobody had ever invited him to come.
Yeah.
I thought that was amazing. But after that, he started getting invited by the actual festival. They would invite him to come. But it was just so interesting. But so what you're doing, your work is so important. Tell me now, what are you doing as it relates to your program? How has your program expanded since 2009? Tell us about it.
2010 is
2010.
when it started. And so it's funny because it started out as, I didn't even really know exactly what it was going to be. I toyed with Blacks in Cannes, right? I toyed with that. And do you remember my reaching out to you before I actually started
Of course,
it?
I do.
Like, okay, like, Rashid, do you want to do something? Like, I'm going back. I'm doing something.
I remember that.
I don't believe in, you were doing something. Wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do, but I wanted to at least talk to you about it.
Yeah.
What the possibilities could be. So I toyed with Blacks in Cannes, right? And then like that whole, like not the whole year, but once I really got it in my head that this was something that I was going to do, I toyed with Blacks in Cannes. I had a Black producer director in mind that was pretty, well known in the U.S. at the time. And, I told him my idea, and he was kind of interested in it, and he thought about coming over or whatever have you. I'm not even sure if he'll remember this to this day, but he was filming, so he could not come, right? So that was like March or February I learned of that. So then, I was like, okay, well, that's, Blacks in Cannes is not going to work. But I was also toying with Diverse in Cannes. One, because I didn't think that there was enough Black people on the ground to really make a difference, right? Because there are Black people here, but everybody's doing their own thing. And I wasn't sure that, there weren't a lot. I mean, there were people there, but it was not a lot. So I didn't think Blacks in Cannes was enough.
Right.
To kind of make a difference or to create a movement. And then ultimately, I feel like I don't want to come to a foreign country and then just network with the people who look like me.
Right.
Because clearly, history has proven we don't necessarily have the power, the green light power. We have internal power. We are empowered to do our own things, but structurally,
exactly,
we're not the ones making the decisions. So we need to, we want to hang with people who look like us, but we also want to go out into the world, into the mainstream, and bring those audiences back. Because at the end of the day, I believe that in order to achieve some form of mainstream success and even some form of success in general, you need other people. You can't assume all your culture is going to support just because we're not a monolith. Like, that's not a dig against the Black people, but just because, like, give us a soul food restaurant. a lot of white people support and non-blacks support soul food restaurants because they can't get that cooking at home.
Right.
With some of the mainstream support, black soul food restaurants would not survive.
Exactly.
Because then you have black people who know how to cook and they may not think that that's the best soul food since,
Right. No, I follow you. I follow
Return
you.
to Jesus. So I think that you have to expand your audience and expand your territory in order to get more support.
Well,
So
that's that marketing PR background that you have,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
MBA
exactly, right?
that took shape.
Exactly. So that's what I believe. So I said all that to say that it morphed from Blacks in Can to Diverse in Can. And the very first year, I had Michael Rowe. He was, or he is, he's a Golden Camera Award winner now. He won that year. His first film was in the Director's Fortnight
Okay.
that year, 2010, and a BCSO, and he won the Golden Camera Award. He agreed. I just stalked those people via social media, internet, that year. And then there was a guy, Felipe Bragancia from Brazil, he was also in the Director's Fortnight that I was able to confirm, along with Tracy Rector, a Native American filmmaker from Seattle, who was the moderator. So I had 2 panelists, 1 moderator, and about 7 to 15 people in 2010
Okay.
inside of the Majestic Hotel.
That's where I came to one of your panels.
And a
I just don't
beautiful-
remember what year.
I don't think it was that year.
It wasn't that year. It wasn't that year.
I think it was 2012 or 2013.
Yeah.
And so, but from seven to 15 people, it was a beautiful room, nicely
Sure.
decorated. Because I didn't have a lot of money. I was still, at this time, I was using my own money. But because I come from corporate America, where we do everything 5-star
Yeah.
at Jaguar Land Rover and at Lincoln Mercury, I know what a nice event looks like.
Of
so
course.
I did my best based on my
Of
skill
course.
set
Of course.
to make a nice environment. So I had some printouts, but my graphics were horrible, in the beginning. And so since then, it has evolved from an afternoon cross-cultural symposium to a full-fledged movement that includes, a Navigating Can pre-festival information session that used to be sponsored by the WGA before COVID, where I educate the filmmakers on how to navigate what I call, somebody said, the Bo chaos that is Can.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I was just going to point out. I remember a few years ago, pre-COVID, or before COVID happened, of course, that I would receive emails or something, social media about, we're having this thing about Can. You can learn how to come, what you do when you get there or whatever. And I thought that was so cool because a lot of people don't know.
And if you
Nobody's
get there,
teaching them.
If you get there and you pay all that money to come and you don't know, you're going to be upset.
Yeah, you'll be a little deterred.
You're not going to be happy. So, yeah. So, and once you get there, it's kind of too late because now you're kind of, moving around, like a chicken with your head cut off because you're trying to figure out what's going on and catch up to
Right.
what you need to be doing. So I offer that. Do
you still
Then
offer that concept? Do you still have that concept?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I have it electronically.
Yes.
Now, just because like somebody reached out to me for a consultation all the time. Like I have become, so I'll finish talking about the movement. So I do that, and then I've created Diversity Day now. So it's not just a panel. It's a day full of diversity activities that happens the second Monday of the festival. So if the Mondays, let's just say the Monday after the festival starts.
I got you.
Is Diversity Day.
Mm-hmm.
So this year it's May 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
And what it includes is short film screenings,
Mm-hmm.
some form of panel discussion, and an awards reception.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Diversity Day looks like. We screen anywhere from 16 to 20 short films that were submitted for consideration to the Diversity in Cannes Short Film Showcase. And then outside of, well, let's finish talking about in Cannes. So since about 2017, we've also programmed other diversity activities on different days. So we had a global Global Women of Color in Film Day, where we program shorts in the short film corner. We've had Black Lives, Black Stories Matter. We've had Women in Formation. And then for this year, we're having a celebration of Black women in film. And last year, we also had a celebration of Black women in film. Now, though diversity in Cannes is not race, I am a Black woman. I'm a Black woman first and foremost. So when I see underrepresentation, I'm going to attempt to fill the void. And so in 76 years now, because they're going into their 76th year, the Cannes Film Festival has only had 2 Black women filmmakers in competition. And
total?
Yes, and 76 years. And in competition. So they may have been in uncertain regard or a special screening or something like that, but they've only been 2 Black women in competition. 2019, it was Marty Diop, from Africa. I think she might be French and African. And then this year, for the first time, it's Ramada Toulay Sai.
Is it Algeria?
Nope, she's French Senegalese.
Oh, okay.
So in 76 years, they've only had 2. I
don't remember what year exactly. Ramatu Keita, I interviewed her just recently. She's from Niger, and she had a film called Alisi that was a documentary. That was, we walked the red carpet, the whole thing. She invited me to come with her to the red carpet. And I that might be the case. She was the first African woman to ever be even considered. So it might have been one of the other categories you talked about.
What's her name?
Ramatu Keita. Ramatu Keita. She lives in Paris, of course, and she did an amazing film called Alisi, which documented the evolution of cinema on the continent of Africa, specifically in Niger.
Okay.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. So all I was going to say is she probably, she was probably there, but she was not in competition.
In the competition. But it was some kind of regard or something. Yeah. Got you. Well, you're doing some incredible work as it relates to that. Now, from a scalable perspective, how do you see where you are now, and what is your outlook for the future of what you're doing with this Diversity in Cannes initiative and movement? Yeah.
So lately, now that diversity and inclusion is trending, the festival has opened up. Now they have an impact section within the festival, within the marché, where they talk about sustainability and, diversity and inclusion, etc. And it's still not, to me, what they need to be doing, right? And I've actually had conversations with the head of the Marché du Film training and development. We had our first conversation because somebody told them about me. They know about me. They know about what I'm doing.
Of course they do.
But they still don't feel me. They're not feeling me, right?
Well, they don't have to feel you right now. You see what I'm saying?
They absolutely don't, because what I do, I have been taking off for 14 years without them. So exactly. I don't need them. No. Though it would add a little more prestige to Diversity in Cannes if they embraced it, I don't need them to take off. And I produce the best event that I can within the confines of my budget, and it is what it is. And last year, after I had the conversation with them, it was very contentious, but I keep reaching out to them. Yes, it was contentious because they want to talk about impact countries. I'm like, if I take somebody from Poland or, Eastern Bloc, where their hair color or their eye color may be different, they're going to look just like the white person in Paris or the white person in London or the white person in another location. So I'm not here to talk about impact. Though diversity in Cannes is not just race, I'm a Black woman first, and we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion. The first thing I'm going to talk about is not impact.
Have you? I know you're familiar with the francophone, as they call it, countries that participate in the festival, and they have a large pavilion in the international section and so forth, and they've been participating for years. A lot of the countries out of West Africa and so forth that don't have their own pavilion, they have an aggregate pavilion. Do you encourage involvement from any of those particular segments of like West Africa, some of those countries getting their involvement?
Well, because, we're not just, race, I'm open to it. And so now, Rashi, since you've been gone, those pavilions, they're still active, but there's a pavilion called the Africans Pavilion.
Okay.
That just started in 2019. That's owned by a Black woman. So very similar to the American Pavilion. It's not owned by a country. It's owned by a company.
Oh, where's the company based?
They're in Paris, and it's called Pavilions Afrique.
Interesting.
And so, yes. And they're they're on the international side where the other pavilions are, not where the American pavilion is, but on that other side.
I understand.
And she's a Black woman, and it's become a very popular destination for those the Africans across the diaspora. So, Caribbean, America, Africa, but mainly it's a focus on Africa. But she's there and she's doing things. So in 2019 and then last year, I partnered with her to produce like a couple of receptions, and our celebration of Black women in film was held there last year.
Oh, awesome. So they're kind of similar. Do they have the sponsor level as American Pavilion?
No.
Oh,
She's doing a lot of it on her own.
I see.
So like when we partnered, it wasn't for free. I paid to host the events there, So she definitely does not have but she's just starting out. So she doesn't have that. But this year, the celebration of Black women in film, and this it's embargoed, as we haven't issued a press release as yet, but this year the British Film Institute is sponsoring the celebration of Black women in film, and we're having the celebration in the UK pavilion.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that, because those kind of connecting points are so important in Cannes, as you know, and it creates visibility, but it also gives credibility to what you're doing, and that now you're peeking into mainstream of how things are operating, and people will recognize what you're doing very seriously. I think so. For as we kind of conclude, what are some of the other things that you're doing here stateside? Is the movement is it only for Cannes, or are you doing things here on stateside?
It is beyond. It is at the Cannes Film Festival and beyond. To date, I've been able to program shorts at the California African American Museum in Los Angeles. I've been able to program for 2 years the short films for the International Faith and Family Film Festival at MegaFest, which is TD Jakes' brand. And then the last thing that I did for pre-COVID was we screened at the BBC in London.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That now. Let's dig a little deeper on that. What's happening here in the States part? As I stated earlier, to me, I see from a state's perspective of looking at diversity, it becomes a political term for me. I don't know how other people look at when you say diversity, and especially you're talking about Hollywood. Are you familiar with the report from Hollywood Diversity Report from UCLA?
Yeah.
That they do every year. Dr. Daryl Hunt, started that project. And it was just kind of interesting. I was looking at the newest statistics and in terms of how diversity and inclusion is really playing out in the real world in Hollywood. And it's just kind of interesting that, they're saying that the findings are basically everything has gotten to a point where it's nothing really tipping over right now in terms of television, film, theatrical releases, in terms of leads. But there's some progress that's been made, but then it's still kind of at a neutral point. What do you see as a future perspective of, I think some of the things that you're saying you're being challenged with in Cannes here, that how do we make those quantum leaps and really kind of take this into our own hands some kind of way?
And that's really it. So I'm going to say this. Last year, when I was talking about the fact that there was one Black woman in competition in 75 years, I had a revelation, my aha moment. Even though I didn't contact them every year, I decided that the Cannes Film Festival proper, their acceptance, approval, I decided that I'm tired of trying to fight the patriarchy. I'm no longer interested. That's not my fight. My fight is not to fight the patriarchy. My fight and my mission is to encourage filmmakers, underrepresented, marginalized, whatever you like to call them, to find a way to, a for us, by us type of thing. Do what you can. Do what you got to do to get your stories told. There's a young lady named Zaina Theris. She does the Micro Budget podcast. She's in America. And that girl churns out films, maybe 2 per year, documentary features, shorts, whatever. She submitted to Diversity in Cannes. She was accepted last year. And she was one of Diversity in Cannes' top 10 filmmakers to watch, just because she makes a film. They're not always, I don't even, they're not, she gets accepted into film festivals and stuff, but she just does her work. Mm-hmm. She just gets it done, period. End of story. And she loves that. She works, she's a strategist now. She's like a strategist at a creative strategist at an ad agency. So she works, full time, but she gets her projects done. And that's really the goal. And then the other goal is to ensure that they know that there's international film business, and that America is not the only
right.
thing in town.
Right.
Get outside of your comfort zone. Get outside of your self-imposed boundaries. Get outside of your geographic boundaries and make something happen. Maybe you're not interested in a global business. If so, then Cannes is not for you. But I am building an international business, and that's why I've been to Locarno Film Festival. I was invited to the Locarno Film Festival as a result of my participation on a panel at the UK Pavilion last year. Then I was invited to Berlin, even though they don't pay your fees, they give you accreditation. But I was invited to Berlin because actually the people in Berlin were inspired by what I was doing here, though it's different from what they're doing, but they were inspired by what I was doing, and they started diversity initiatives in Berlin.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is, again, I reiterate to you, the work you're doing in helping to expand those boundaries for filmmakers and people in the entertainment business that look at visual entertainment and deal with it is so important. And I commend you for that, because everybody doesn't see that landscape. They don't understand it's not just about here in the States to make things happen. And you can step outside of that and see a whole nother world that's going on. And I totally applaud you and thank you for just taking this moment. Now, what I would like for you to do is just give give some contact info about Diversity in Can and how people can reach out to you if they're interested once they hear this podcast, how they can actually reach you.
The best way to reach Diversity in Can is through our social media. That's the easiest. That's where all the information is distributed and disseminated. So at Diverse, DIVERSE, the letter N, Can, CANNES. That's the best way to get in touch with us. Most of the time, it's me who's managing the accounts. So if you send us a message, you'll most likely be connected to myself. And then from there, depending on what we're talking about, then we go to the email. But Diverse in Can is the best way to reach out.
Awesome. Well, this has been a delight, and I'm so happy that we could, spend this quality time to have this conversation and catch up. And when you're back in LA, definitely we have to connect now. You have to reach out, let me know you
coming downtown Long Beach.
You have to let me know you're around so we can hook up for sure.
Absolutely.
So, all the best to you, and thank you so much for being a part of our platform today, and look forward to talking to you again soon. You leave for Cannes when? When do you leave?
The 14th, May 14th.
May 14th. Okay. Cannes starts that following weekend, or?
No, it starts on that Tuesday.
Okay. All right.
So the 14th is a Sunday. I like to get in the day before the festival starts.
Yes.
Because I like to go to the opening night, even though I just sleep. I love to go to the opening night.
Of course.
And I have to be in position because it's not, even though I've been going to the festival for 14, 15 years, it's not easy. Like I still always need to be maneuvering and all those things. So I go the day before so I can kind of get acclimated and get started.
Well, all the best to you. Have the most wonderful Cannes this year. And I look forward to talking to you. Maybe we can get another interview in a part 2. When you get back.
Listen, I'll even go live from the Cannes Film Festival.
Hey, that's an idea. We could pull that off. So maybe we should communicate on that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you. And you definitely are a part of the inspiration for the movement. So thank you for your part in inspiring me.
Thanks so much, Yolonda Brinkley. And you've been listening to Noir 360. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
The Film Verdict gives you Noir 360, hosted by Rashid Bahati, a global podcast that explores the impact and influence of Black cinema around the world.